Sale velocity was strong last year. The strength of the rental market was really the redeeming factor in the market. Very little new supply coming online. The neighborhoods felt very vibrant again. Retail corridors were full. The recent past has been healthy. I'd say the market, in the context of underwriting and in general, is just very disciplined right now. I don't think that there's as many people stretching or being like Pollyannish about the different inputs of the underwriting. So I think, realistic, but I'd say disciplined.
All right, so we'll kick it off here. Just, Joe, you did a ton of transactions last year. Talk to us about the last 12 months on the north and northwest side of Chicago. Where were cap rates at? What was just some of those things that were unexpected?
It's funny you should ask that.
We said no notes.
Well, then you can't get any stats because I don't know the stats without the notes. This is the one thing I prepared for here. So I think to put into context 2024, be helpful to give the frame of reference of 2023. Northwest side of the city, we're working on kind of what the polygon is exactly of this group. Basically kind of followed the west of the highway to Harlem, west of Western, and north of North Avenue, I think was the southern border that we used. So no offense if you were outside of the area. So in 2023, in that whole area, there were 54 deals. 6.5 cap was the average cap rate. 212 was the average per unit. If you carve out Logan Square, which can kind of skew the data a little bit, it was 30 deals, 7.2 cap rate, 131 a unit. So massive difference between Logan Square.
This might sound like a joke of a question, but when you say cap rate, is that the broker cap rate? How are you judging NOI there?
The cap rate, your cap rate, my cap rate, an expert. The cap rate is a very fungible data point in small and mid-sized properties. The needle moves very quickly from one operator to another, so it's a tough thing to quote. This is from CoStar data, which aggregates, and I think on an average basis, we can look at it and kind of make some determinations with it. We can look at the data onesie, twosie, and there'd be a cap rate that was wrong, either low or high, wrong. We try to underwrite it apples to apples. So in that data set, there was a large deal in Logan Square, mowed on Campbell and Armitage that sold for about 400 a unit, so it kind of skewed the per unit. Now I'm going to get to your question. So in 2024, we had almost the exact same number of deals in the whole polygon, so whole northwest side of the city. There were 55 deals. So the velocity was up last year, albeit by 2%, one deal. And in Logan Square, we saw 35 of the deals were outside of Logan Square. The balance were in Logan Square. But there was a lot more parity between the price per unit. So in the whole polygon, there was 107. The average price per unit was 177 a door. The average cap rate was 6.9. So the price per unit was down 20%. Cap rate was up 6%. But if we pull out Logan Square, the average price per unit was 167 a unit, and the cap rate was 6.9. So cap rates were actually down 4%, price per unit was up 27%. It's just a couple data points. So the point of the long-winded answer is just sale velocity was strong last year. It was the strength of the rental market was really the redeeming factor in the market. Very little new supply coming online. The neighborhoods felt very vibrant again. Retail corridors were full, and so the recent past has been healthy.
Yep.
I'm done with my notes now.
So before we talk about future and where you think it's going, I want to hit on that, the rental being strong. So, Ann, you do a lot of leasing. What did you see as far as turnovers, leasing, like piggyback off of Joe's comment there?
For last year.
Yes.
We saw much higher rates of renewal than like we had in prior years. I normally budget for it's like 2/3 of units renew and like 1/3 turns. We were consistently in like a 70, like mid 75, like high 70s, like percentage for renewals. And I was like crazy aggressive on the renewal prices. It's in many cases becoming like inverted where I'm getting a higher price at renewal than I'm going to get when it goes back to market. So it was like super, super duper strong last year.
Yeah. What would you say is a good mark to have, right? Because if you're renewing 100% of tenants, you don't have turnover, but you're probably leaving money on the table.
Right.
And if everyone's leaving the building, that's also not healthy. So like, is there like a target where you try to be at, or is it just, hey, keep pushing till we get too many and then we move the needle back?
So for the entire like portfolio that we manage, we look at 70% as the goal. However, that's really going to vary owner to owner based on, I'm always asking the owner, like, where are you at in your mortgage, right? Like if you're lucky enough to be on a 30-year, we don't have to worry about it. But if they're on a commercial loan, we're handling renewals super differently if they're 12 to 18 months out from a refi, just to because in that scenario, it's worth losing a tenant like over $100, right? Or over $50, just because your rent roll is going to be king in those scenarios.
Well, yeah, every $100 is $1,200 to the NOI divided by Joe's 0.065. I can't do that math, but it's a big number.
Yeah.
Which matters if you're refinancing, but if you're on a 30-year and you're just looking to manage your cash flow, you're gonna you're gonna pay for the turnover. Hopefully you don't have any vacancy. Maybe you're paying a leasing agent. So it matters about the timing of your loan.
What would you, so there's a lot of housing providers right now that might have that 7, 8, 10-year tenant. They really liked them. They're low maintenance. They don't call much maintenance. And they're really behind, maybe $300, $400, $500, $600. What's your advice as far as measuring that? Do you jack them up and risk leaving versus keeping it low and leaving money on the table, assuming there's no refinance coming up?
Yeah, we actually had this exact situation. And it's an older lady. She was there when we bought the building. Super nice lady, but her rent was drastically below market. And so.
And she's on fixed income, I bet, at the story
I'm sure, yeah. And so we did, I was so market rent on the unit's $1,550. Obviously I have to do some work to the unit. She was paying $1,095 or something like that. So I was look, I can renew you short term for $1,395, right? And everyone's she's not gonna build it. I was she's gonna figure it out because she doesn't want to go, she doesn't have anywhere to go, right? She doesn't want to move. It's a lot for her. And then, so that was a short-term renewal through right now. And I was planning then on having her leave and rehabbing it, but she's I really don't want to go. And my owner had already approved the rehab. It was going to be fast ROI. I got her up to $1,495. And she just doesn't want to move. So the other strategy we've used when we've maybe on a new purchase, right? Instead of doing a rehab kick out, if it's a good tenant that you want to keep, we've said hey, we do need to increase your rent to market, but what do you want done in your apartment, right? And it's never crazy. They're I want new cabinets, and we're done, great, right? And it's a really easy way to get there.
Yep. All right, so you mentioned getting ready for a refi and underwriting. I feel underwriting is a lot different today than it was 2 years ago, both for a refi, and Joe, you probably see it on the purchases as well. Can you, both of you, just talk about some of those hot buttons that exist now that didn't exist 2 years ago?
Yeah. I'd say the market, in the context of underwriting and in general, is just very disciplined right now. I don't think that there's as many people stretching or being Pollyannish about the different inputs of the underwriting. So I think realistic, but I'd say disciplined. So a couple that I guess have been of more attention lately, insurance. Felt like rates were increasing really significantly maybe 18 months or so ago. It feels like they've settled into themselves a little bit right now, at least here in the Midwest. But I will say that insurance feels like the carriers are being a lot more picky on what they're looking at for their inspections, whether it's on the front end or after they come in, they close and they do their, post-sale inspection. If they have drones or they're using aerial photography or something. I keep hearing them complain about roofs, so that's something, not so much in the underwriting, but I guess all related. Leasing commissions, we're underwriting on all of our deals these days. Whether it's Ann's team or Tyson's team or whoever, it feels like folks, if they're going to take advantage of this hubris in the rental market, it feels like you have to pay somebody to get it. It's not slapping a for rent sign in the yard as much. So we're underwriting leasing commissions. It's usually either, depending on, a corridor building, we'll have higher turnover and higher leasing commissions. So in that case, maybe we're underwriting for a third of the units turning in 1 month paid. If it's a building with larger format units, maybe we'll do 25%. So basically a quarter of the monthly rent roll. And then I'd say, those maybe are the two biggest ones in the underwritings.
Yeah. And anything else to add there? Those that cover it.
I agree with Joe.
So, all right, going along the lines of renewal and getting rent up, the other side of the table is evictions, right? I know that's something that you've dealt with over the last, whatever year. Give us an idea. What is the current timeline for those who are potentially having to face this? Give us some thoughts here.
Yeah, what I see often is owners like making emotional choices about eviction versus like business decisions, right? The first scenario is like they feel like bad for the person, right? They want to give the person more time, et cetera. We can't do that. Like basically we need this, like the city and the county, everything in our state is like so slanted towards the tenant. Like we very much have to take advantage of any leverage we have, which is getting the situation like into court. What I will say is like best case, and like let's use January 1st as like the date when like you would like served your tenant like a 5-day notice, right? Or rather, let's say your 5-day notice in December had expired, you get it to your attorney on January 1st. Best case, if you didn't do cash for keys or talk the tenant into leaving on their own, you're gonna get possession March 15th. That's like the very best scenario. Worst case, if you're trying to go after that money judgment and you're not focusing on possession, maybe the tenant like asked for like a trial, you're looking at June 15th. And so that's like significant money. And I feel for the landlord. I feel that like this is money that is owed you and it like hurts, but like the truth is like most of the time that money's not collectible. So like the only person you're hurting in like going through like focusing on the money judgment, like maybe being like at trial and not doing like a cash for keys or just getting the tenant out is your business and yourself, right? Because you're down those extra months of rent.
Well, the other thing that happens too is like, you see it compound, there's the math of it, and I agree with you, it always makes sense to try to work something, but it also, it's like if you have a bad tenant, they're usually, beating up the hallways or they're loud, and then when you kind of advance through the process, you see them be rougher and rougher on the unit, so like there's this element of just deterioration of the situation within the building. I feel like it gets worse too.
Joe, what would be your recommendation from a seller standpoint? What do you advise your clients? Maybe you have an 18-unit building and a couple of tenants are behind, or maybe they're on the fence, should I serve it or not? Like, what do you advise people looking to sell?
It's consistent with what Ann said. You have to start the process. Everybody that's buying understands the time frame and understands that it's unfortunately part of the business. But you don't want to wait and defer that till after the sale, try to limp a situation along until it's done, because then the buyer's always going to have kind of the worst case situation in their mind. They're going to say, well, it's going to take 6 months or 8 months or whatever. If you can start it and run it in parallel paths with the sale, you can cut off a couple months, and then, it's usually something at that point we can solve for, because we can put aside an escrow or we can have a credit or something like that. It becomes more of a known commodity. When it's just a bad tenant, it's more of an unknown, and then the buyer is going to assume kind of a full freight solution to the fix.
Yeah, if I'm on the buy side there, I'm assuming worst case scenario.
Totally, you don't
gut
know
rehab,
the person.
Yeah,
gut rehab, I gotta do all the work.
Totally. You don't know the person, so, and then obviously, probably should have started, but if you can do a cash for keys, if you can find some way to get them out, the math is always better than going through the process.
Yeah.
But then you have a vacant unit to show, so I'll ask that question as well too.
Yeah.
If you have a 18, 24 units, what are you showing there? What do you recommend sellers
Get it
do?
vacant, rent ready. Don't renovate it. I generally don't think that improvements pre-sale, whether it's a renovation of a down unit or whatever, I don't think that it's often a $1 in, $2 out equation. And if it's not, then it doesn't make sense for the seller to spend the time. Even if it's a wash, even if you get the money back that you spent, doesn't make sense to spend your bandwidth. If it's something that improves the curb appeal or I don't think showability is a word, but like if it just looks better when we're walking people through, that's different, because that's like a little bit more intangible. But generally improvements to the property, I'd rather the seller keep their basis down and let the buyer put their fingerprints on it afterwards.
Yep. Circling back to cash for keys, do you have a rule of thumb of when to start that convo, and what's usually like, is there an offer of like, hey, we're going to give them 1 month, 2 months? Like, do you have any rule of thumbs you can share?
So it depends on how urgent the situation is, right? Like if I have like an owner who like has a deadline, like a sale that is like contingent on this, or like a refi, they're trying to get off their construction loan, et cetera, then we're gonna be like more aggressive. We're gonna throw more at the situation. I mean, it is great news that Cash for Keys is back in play. Like during COVID, like the people like knew. They like knew there was like no leverage. They knew there was nothing to do. Like landlords like that I'm like close with were offering like 5 figures, and like the person like was not leaving. So it's phenomenal that this is like working again. I'm typically like, again, like depending on the urgency and like where we're at in the court process, like I'm like thinking about like what they actually need in order to move, right? Like this person needs like first month's rent, they may need a security deposit, and they need some sort of funds to like get their items out. Sometimes we're even offering like we're like, we'll carry your stuff for you. Like I'll give you the guys to like move your stuff out, right? But just thinking about like in real terms, like for this person to get the type of apartment they're saying they need, like where in whatever neighborhood, I'm like obviously starting like lower because I know there's going to be a negotiation, but I'm not trying to like super lowball them. I'm not starting with like $500, right? Like it's just, I'm starting with significant money that's going to make them pay attention, and I'm always giving a deadline. Like I'm like, okay, this offer's only good until blank.
I'm sure you'll agree with me, but Cash for Keys is not a one and done thing. It's an ongoing, like every tenant that's in that situation has circumstances that change quickly. So they might not take $2,000 today, but they might take $1,500 next Friday just because something happened. Like you got to keep at it, and I hate to say it, but catch them at their weakest point, and then get them to take the deal.
It's smart to try to solve their actual like what are their desires in this? You know, like for them, somebody moving their stuff to a new apartment might have more value than $5,000. Like they might be a very insurmountable thing. So I think in real estate, and especially in like the housing provider tenant like relationship in general, because of the rigidity of the like ordinances and stuff, it sometimes puts this like, everybody's so black and white about it. But if you can like not compromise your position in the ordinances, but also like try to instill some empathy or something and try to solve their problem, as opposed to just, how could this person ever turn down this amount of money, you know? Understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, so you actually surprised me with that transactions were up last year compared to 2023. I was not expecting that. What who are like the typical buyers and sellers? Like, who are you seeing in the marketplace making moves on both sides?
Yeah, I think transaction, you know, people read Cranes or whatever the publications are, and the bigger deals.
I can't anymore because Mark changed his password.
I'll give you mine, dude. I'll screenshot them or whatever and send them to you.
I'm in the dark.
So like, if there's not as much institutional velocity, the market gets the impression that all sale velocity is down, which isn't the case. So. To your question, buyers are generally, it's been more local folks, been more long-term owner-operators, folks that have a business plan, people that are seeing balance sheets improve because of the strength of the rental market. And then, I guess on the larger stuff, we're starting to see some out-of-state activity pick up. And I think it's because we kind of finally have like headlines on our side a little bit when you look at like rent growth and in the Midwest versus, kind of markets that were buzzier a few years ago, the Sun Belt and what have you. So we're starting to see some more out-of-state appetite, but it's mostly folks that just have a long-term disciplined business plan and an existing portfolio that are buying. Sellers, a lot of folks with loans coming due, which is no surprise. Some people on the other end of the spectrum would kind of monetize having an attractive assumable loan. So if you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever years left on an attractive loan, and your business plan has kind of run its course, somebody will pay up for the cash flow in the next handful of years. I'd say that's the biggest set. And then I'd say also there's a certain amount of the seller pool is just like people who are close to retiring and are just fed up with it being increasingly difficult to be a housing provider. Just like legislative stuff, just like death by 1,000 paper cuts, kind of.
I'll take that one step further. What is the sentiment of sellers around pricing? Are you having to sell them on like it's not worth this much because of rates, or are they coming in realistic?
Yeah.
Is it just same as always?
There's always something to manage, There's always, I think in the last few years there's been a lot of paralysis by way of like the news, and people get so psyched out on either end of the spectrum. They get so psyched out about big macroeconomic stuff, and then you have to kind of sell through different dynamics. But, we're trying to manage pricing, and it just depends on how desirable the real estate is. There's certain types of buildings, for the group here today. If you own a courtyard building on one of the boulevards in Logan Square, you're kind of naming your price. That's not very sensitive to interest rates. If you own a building that's a little bit more of a commodity, then it does track more in line with where interest rates are, because doesn't have the scarcity of supply. So it just depends what we're trying to manage, but there's always something.
Yep. And similar question on the rental side, are you seeing a difference in the tenant pool? So that person who's renting a rehab, northwest side here, so a rehab 2-unit in Portage Park, that area, like is that tenant similar to the tenant you saw 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or is that changing as well?
It's totally changing. So people who were buyers, 3 to 5 years ago they're not buying right now, right? Like it's very different. So it is like a more like qualified like tenant pool, I would say. The folks who would have been buying are still renting. And so that's like affecting like pricing in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Cool. We'll have you guys take out your crystal balls here for a second. What do you see happening? This is great data. What do you see happening moving forward?
Or what are you planning around for your own kind of operations?
I'm going to guess Joe's going to be optimistic.
Yeah, I am. And it's partly because I'm optimistic, and it's partly because I'm, actually optimistic. I think we'll see really healthy rent growth for the next several years, because there's no new supply coming online, and because the city is very vibrant, desirable, alive. Somebody's motorcycle is really cool out there. And I think, cap rates and interest rates, I'm expecting to stay both fairly flat. But I think we see pricing growth due to top line revenue increasing. And I think some of our expenses, especially real estate taxes, which consume a big percent of the expense load, are a little bit more of a known commodity right now, because city just went through the triennial. So kind of know, I think, within a band at least, where taxes or where expenses in general are going to land, and I think we'll see rents outpace that. So I think we'll see some pricing growth in the next few years, not by way of cap rate compression or interest rates going down, but because of top line revenue.
Yep. And similar sentiment?
Yeah, so when we were looking at like our buildings, like our portfolio performance over the last like few years, and a lot of times like owners want to like focus on like expense, right? Like a bill makes them mad. It's like the rent all day long, rent. And like in order to like get the top rents that are available like at market today, because like it's a different pool, because like all the new construction like everything's getting pushed up. Like we're really focusing on like working with like professional like industry experts. So like I have a leasing manager at Westward 360. He's awesome. He's like a very seasoned like broker, but I also lean on like industry experts who are also like owners, right? So I'm talking to Apartment Source and Tyson like all the time, because their agents they're not just seeing like, like Tom's buildings, right? Like you're seeing like your buildings, like his agents are everywhere. So they're seeing what is moving doors. And so in order to like achieve those rents, which like we're seeing crazy stuff. We're seeing like massive increases. Like obviously Avondale's been hot, like Albany Park is getting super hot. And so we're seeing like massive increases here. But like to Joe's point, like I'm going to achieve those if I'm working with like an agent who does this all day long, and like that's what they like live and breathe, versus sure, like I can like show apartments in my own building, but I'm not like in the mix as much. And so I'm going to continue to like lean on other industry experts like Joe and like Tyson, like you guys, in order to like understand how to like best leverage the market to achieve like the rents that are possible, which are like high, and I think really exciting.
Yeah, no good stuff. Tyson had a kid when we were supposed to have him on, so we're calling you out.
We're supposed to have him on twice.
If you're listening, he's wearing it like the guy in Hangover right now. He's wearing the kid right now.
All right.
All right,
He's not. You don't have to look over
we're going
there.
to try this out here.
Test it. Make sure it works. All right. All right. Test it. Make sure it works. All right.
I can't believe this.
All right, guys.
Give her the rules.
These are the rules. So first off, these are some hard-hitting Chicago real estate questions. Let me tell you. Dug these up. We're gonna ask the question. We're gonna give you multiple choice. Okay?
See.
Whoever buzzes in first gets to answer. But if you get it wrong, it is -1 point. So you can't just answer in first.
All right.
Can we get we need help. Somebody keep score for us. Somebody help?
Who's the NSBC secretary?
No,
We need
the
a
accountant.
bookkeeper.
The accountant.
The
This is
accountant, yeah.
numbers.
Marco's got this.
All right.
All right.
Hold on. So the prize, though, for you guys is a $100 gift card brought to you by today's sponsor, which is MBOA unofficially, and then you pay money. So GC Realty Development will end up giving you a $100 gift card if whoever wins. And
All
if
right.
they get it wrong, we're going to take it to the audience. So listen up, and then you get a chance to win something.
Cool.
All right, then we have a couple. We'll see how many of these we get through here. See how this goes. All right, first question. What does the first star on the Chicago flag represent? The first star, and your options are, and you can answer before multiple choice if you know it. Fort Dearborn, the Great Chicago Fire, 1893 World Fair, 1933 Century of Progress Exhibition. Joe.
I'm not going to let any go unanswered. I'm a broker. I got to talk all the time. We'll go World Fair.
No, you are incorrect. We're at -1 here.
Yeah.
And you can just not answer. No.
This is.
Was it, should I buzz in?
Yeah, you gotta buzz in. We bought these things.
Yeah, shit. We got to put it to use.
What was the option for C?
It was Fort Dearborn, Great Chicago Fire, 1893 World Fair, and then the 1933 Century of Progress Exhibition.
Okay, so he said C.
Would you say, Joe? You were wrong.
I'm not telling you.
He said the World Exposition.
All right.
I'll go A.
You got it. Fort Dearborn.
All right.
Remember, I put these together and I'm lazy. That was just in order of the stars.
I'm down,
Like,
I'm down 2 through 1 question.
yeah, you're
thought
down
you
two
were- I
through
was
one
gonna guess
question.
same
Not
as
a
you,
good.
but I
We'll do a lightning round. You're never out. This is like.
All right.
All right. This is an actual real estate question now. All of these are excluded from the RLTO except owner-occupied property with less than 6 units, a dwelling unit occupied by an employee, property held in the name of an individual, not in an LLC, or a dwelling unit in a co-op. Who buzzed in there? Joe?
C.
C, you are correct. You're back to 0. 1-0 in here. All right. C, a property held in the name of an individual, not an LLC. That doesn't matter. The other 3, though, are exempt from the RLTO.
All right. Next question.
I'm sorry, I took 2. You go.
No, it's okay.
This is a hard
I just
hitting-
had to start.
This is a hard-hitting one.
What is Mike Glasser's middle name? A, Alan, B, Joseph, C, Daniel, or D, James?
Woo.
I'm
And
going B.
B, it is not Joseph.
All right. I'm going to guess Alan, A.
We'd like you to buzz in, sir.
Alan, A. What is Alan?
Correct.
Yeah.
Really?
Are we back to, now it's 1-0 Joe? Marco, where are we at here? All right. Go ahead. You do
I'm
2
going
in
to
a row
play
now.
stall ball.
All right. Elston Avenue is named after Daniel Elston. Which of these is not true about him? He is an immigrant from London. He was both a brickyard owner and a school inspector. He was an alderman. He served in the Civil War.
Saying this because we're off Elston Avenue.
A.
No.
D.
You got it.
Woo!
Back on the board.
Back on the board. And Joe lost
I'm
one.
back off the board.
All right, here. I got another hard-hitting one here. Since we're sitting
These
at
are
Coletti's,
kinda-
they do
these
a
are
great.
pretty hard.
This is the most effort I've put into anything for the podcast
I
in the last year
appreciate
and
it,
a half.
No ChatGPT.
No, these are real. You're not going to find this question on ChatGPT, I can promise you. So this one's about Coletti's, the great sponsor here of NSBC. So, which one of these is true about Coletti's? It was founded over 75 years ago. My grandparents had their 50th. Oh, go ahead.
Is that was that the whole answer? A? Or were you continuing? Were
You
reading-
buzzed in. Like, what do you want me to do here?
I saw when I went to the bathroom, I saw a guy, I think it was I think it was founded over 75 years
All right,
ago.
hold on, I'm going to finish the question for you, though. I'll let you slide. My grandparents had their party for their 50th wedding anniversary here. We had our pre-party dinner for freshman year homecoming here, or all of the above.
All of the above?
All of the above.
Oh, man.
ChatGPT isn't going to get that one. Joe, great job on the deductive reasoning, though.
Yeah, I guess I'll wait. I didn't know all the above.
We got some kinks to work out in this.
All right. What year was the Chicago fire? 1860, 1871, 1882, or 1893?
1893?
No.
C.
No. Anybody?
71.
Who said it first? Who said it first?
Oh,
All right, you get a book.
Ooh.
How negative am I right now?
Yeah, where are
It's
we
one of my
at?
favorite books by Dan Sullivan.
No, there's going to be a
We're in the
lightning round where
red.
they're worth 1,000
I'd like to
points.
press.
You just read it? It's awesome.
This is how I play blackjack.
All right, go.
All right, we have an actual real estate one here. This is from the RLTO, the notice of renewal. No tenant shall be required to sign a new agreement more than 90 days before termination of the existing agreement, something I didn't know. If the housing provider violates this, the tenant shall be entitled to 1 month's rent or actual damage, whatever is greater, 3 months' rent or actual damage, whatever is greater, the right to renew at the rate of the current agreement, the right to postpone their upcoming renewal for an additional 60 days.
I can't.
I think D.
No.
I'm gonna say B because it seems like the most dramatic.
All right.
B.
Bill, are there any attorneys
Anyone know
who
the answer?
this?
Raise your hand. Don't shout it out. You said A?
Hey,
Yes.
Jim, yeah. So this is actually important because you're pushing renewals 120 days in advance. You can't force them to sign.
All right, I got a book. Joey
than
Coleman,
90.
Never Lose a Customer. He was
You
on the
can encourage
podcast
them.
episode something, but
1
he talks
month's
about
rent or
resident
actual
experience.
damages. I
So
don't
it's a
know what
great
that is.
episode. Check it out.
1 month. I had no idea. Now I'm learning something.
I expect
That
an
was
attorney
probably
to
more
say that
useful
one.
than my 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏
is said to be the oldest bar in Chicago. Which restaurant claims to be the longest running restaurant?
Oh.
Is that A, Daly's Restaurant, Berghoff's, Walnut Room, or Gene and Giorgetti? Gene and Giorgetti.
Joretti's.
I don't
You guys
even-
got it. You guys got
yeah.
it.
Berghoff's.
No.
Wrong.
Second.
I'm in the hole big time.
I'll go Walnut Room.
Wrong.
Oh.
Who else? Who got? Don't
You
yell
got
it
two
out.
chances. Anyone?
I don't think it's Gene.
We got two
Giorgetti's,
shot
is it?
choice left. Who wants to go?
Who said Daly?
It wasn't Gene and Giorgetti's.
The other one wins.
What'd you say? It's not Gene and Giorgetti's. There's only one left. Who said Daly's at least?
Daly's on this. We had a
All right,
south
here we
side
go.
answer for the Northwest Side Building Coalition, so makes sense no one got it.
All right, go to the softball ones, dude.
Here we go. Yeah, let me find a softball
What's the score?
one.
What score do we got here?
All right.
Wow, both negative.
All right. Here, how about
You're
this?
just gonna have a negative number.
Could have just abstained.
All right, no, here we go. This will be worth, I'll give you no multiple choice, and it'll be worth 5 points, but only 2 negative.
Okay.
All right? No multiple choice. In which Chicago neighborhood did John Womack, board member of NSBC here, buy his first building?
Austin, North Austin.
No. You're back in the hole. No shot at it?
No.
Also not Hermosa.
Belmont Cragen.
Belmont Cragen.
Who said Belmont Cragen?
I did.
Yeah, but who next said Belmont Cragen?
All right, we got to stick with this 5 negative 2 format to
like
get you
it.
guys out of the hole here. Mark, you want to do one or are you handing out prizes?
Go on.
All right, we can do this one here. All of these addresses are currently directly affected by the Northwest Housing Preservation Ordinance, except, so 3 of these 4 are within the map.
Can I buzz preemptively and hear the word?
Yeah, if you know what it is.
No.
3920 West Eddy, 2828 North Richmond, 3742 West Patterson, 2534 West North Avenue. Which one of these is not in the ordinance?
Patterson.
Patterson. It stops at Addison. Good job there.
Nice work.
There you go. We'll make that a bonus round. Let's get you. We'll get
That
you
was
positive.
10?
That's 10.
Please.
All right. If you have a standard 25 by 125 lot, 3,125 square feet, in Chicago zone R5, assuming you meet all setback and height requirements, how many units can you build on that, build by right on that lot?
Oh, before multiple choice.
I thought we were going no choices in this.
Yeah, keep going with that. Keep going with that.
I think it's 4.
No.
3.
No. Does anyone know the answer? Who said 7?
Who said 7?
Oh.
Yeah. Nice job. R5 zoning is 400 square
said
feet
7?
of lot per unit.
Nice.
So
All
that'd
right,
be
another one of my
2,800.
favorite
8
books.
would put you over 32. You'd probably run into setback requirements before that.
Great news.
All right. Here we go.
What's the score first?
We don't want to announce that.
All right.
Everyone's
20
having a
to
good
20.
time.
Everyone's having a good time. Leave it alone.
All right, we're sitting in Jeff Park here. There are a lot of city workers. Roughly, how many firefighters are employed by the city of Chicago? And your options are 1,000, 2,500, 4,500, 7,000. How many firefighters are there in the city of Chicago?
4,500.
4,500. You're back on the board. Nice. There we go.
All right.
Are these hard to everybody, or are we just like dropping it?
Oh, these.
Belmont
Can't believe you guys
Cragen.
didn't know Coletti's.
Belmont Cragen. Which of these east-west streets is the furthest south? Drummond, Alched, Wolfram, or 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗁?
Alkeld.
Alkeld.
I said it funny.
Yeah. You are correct, sir. There we go. All right, here's one you guys.
Is this working? I want to make sure. All right, it's working. I just want to make sure you're not.
All right, here's one you guys can get. So you got a Portage Park tenant who's been in their apartment since 2021. How many days notice do you need to provide them of renewal/termination? You can't live.
120 days.
120 days. There we go. We're back on the board. You're up.
Keep going. I don't have.
All right, here we go. This one's worth 10 points. How many kids does Mark have?
2.
She asked the
She's
question.
back.
Real estate's about people and relationships.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one last bonus round here. I think we'll call it a day. Name. All right, this is just. There's no multiple choice here. Name 5 M streets in Chicago.
Menard, Medill, Minerva. Started out hot. I'm getting a little.
Where the Bulls play?
Bulls play. Oh, Madison, Monroe.
There you go.
Yeah. I was stuck northwest with those,
All right, I think that's all our goofy questions we had there. We do have stuff up here for everyone, so hopefully you guys enjoyed.
Who won?
Yeah, Marco, what are we
Felt
doing on
like a
telly here?
draw.
And 7, Joe taking
That 10-point question. She just sat there waiting for a personal question
All right,
about Mark.
and wins the $100 gift card brought to you by MBOA, funded by GC Realty Development.
There we go.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. Mark, take us out
yeah,
here.
thank you guys for
Thank
coming
you,
on here. It
guys.
was awesome. Tom, thank you. Listeners, audience, you guys were great. You guys were quiet. I appreciate that. And everyone at home, you guys all have your phone in your hand right now. You could easily go to iTunes and leave us a review. And listeners, you could easily do this while you're driving. So thank you, and we will see you next week.
Thanks,
all.
guys.
All right, good job.
That was fun.